space-time. In this video, you will find my study discussion about Claude Bolling's Just Joking. In case you don't know it, Claude Bolling was a French musician, an excellent pianist, a great composer, mainly playing and creating music in the field of jazz. However, you will notice if you search around his compositions, there are many recordings of his works on YouTube. I even will post some links about what I love most of his production. Claude Bolling liked often to, cross that ideal boundary that separates the world of jazz music and classic music. In this study discussion, I will not, unfortunately, show along the video screenshots taken from the music score, and this is because the music sheet is not on the public domain. So ideally, if you want to follow this discussion, you should purchase from the internet or from where you find it the score of this piece. Myself, I am owning this little booklet. You see, a very thin one. I guess I bought it slightly more than 30 years ago, and it contains 3 original jazz pieces. They are considered here original boogie woogie, written by Claude Bolling. And you can find again in YouTube a recording where Claude Bolling himself is playing these pieces, and he's playing these along with several other jazz style, boogie style compositions in an extraordinarily nice recording. I've noticed that on the internet you can find books for sale that have the same cover, but in that case they contain not only the 3 original boogies by Claude Bolling, but also jazz pieces and boogies that he performed in that recording that you can find on YouTube. Okay, so let's start with the practical considerations working along the music score. A first thing perhaps to get some general orientation is about the architecture of this work. So you are seeing here the shape of this work in symbolic terms. So it is something like what we found already in the antique rondos in Baroque music or in classic music, and nowadays in a number of pop or modern songs and compositions. Well, this for us that need to work at the piano has certain practical benefits, because you see that considering the total length of the piece when you play it, there are substantial sections that are being repeated, and this helps a bit in reducing our time spent to learn this difficult piece. Yes, this is a piece that contains a number of passages that require quite an advanced technical skill. In case you are not at that level, perhaps a good idea might be, at least for some time, avoid to play the most difficult variations in the piece. It is a possibility. For instance, skipping the chorus 2 and 3 and work directly on the conclusion, on the coda. Or while you will listen to my discussion, you will notice that often as a studying method, I suggest to start with a simplified writing of a particular passage. And in case you feel that that is enough for your level, you might stop there. Of course, it's not that rich, that full as the original rendition, but however, it provides, I believe, a nice jazzy and boogie spirit and musical character anyway. So let's start with the intro. By the way, in my studying of this piece, I took 2 references this time for my work. One is, of course, the music score, but the other is the original recording by the musician who composed this music himself. It's very funny for me that they have written tons of books, and they even hold conferences and lecture about how we should play Johann Sebastian Bach, where eventually nobody has an actual clue about himself who was playing his compositions. So why not in this case to study this piece by referring both to the music score and to Claude Bolling's original performance. And by doing that, I noticed one thing, for example. Well, the music score is quite accurate with respect to what he plays at the piano, but it is not 100% accurate with respect to what he has recorded. This might have different explanations. First of all, he was a jazz pianist, and as jazz pianists typically do, he was mainly improvising his works rather than writing them down very accurately. And probably he was performing different modifiers every time that he played these compositions. Well, we don't even know if it was Claude Bolling, at least I don't know if it was Claude Bolling who wrote this music score, because there are examples where we know that music played by great jazz pianists have been written down by other musicians that noted down what they could understand what they are playing, because often these great jazz pianists do things at the keyboard that is really very difficult to exactly grasp and translate in something written. So along this discussion, I will also highlight here and there a few details that I grasped by hearing the performance by Claude Bolling and decided to incorporate in my own performance of the piece, since I found those modifiers very, very interesting and pleasant compared to what I found on the score. Alright, we have this episode that is a kind of refrain for our architecture. It starts with two lines that are kind of, how to say, meditative and calm. We have a pianissimo on the score, and the first thing that you will notice if you listen to the original, it doesn't sound like Claude Bolling was really playing these two lines as a pianissimo. However, what I feel might be nice, if you like, is to push down the una corda and then playing these two lines with a kind of rich and full touch, okay, not to be too light, to produce a kind of good and full sonority. So we see that the left hand is doing nothing complicated. Let's review it a couple of times just to get a good order in understanding what we have to do. So you see, we have a syncopated rhythmical pattern, and it is probably easier to maintain the rhythmical order when we play together with the right hand. Of course, here we need to use the pedal, it is even written here, and let's see the right hand. The right hand is playing relatively easy chords, but different chords in progression that builds up a nice jazzy and mysterious harmony. So we can read these passages in different harmonic terms, for instance, considering that we are playing a C minor, and on it we build a G major with the seventh. With the pedal we mix the two harmonies. And similarly, in the next two bars, the chords are a bit more exotic, but still are, I think, relatively easy to visualize and to remember. And in case you don't find super easy at first to play these thirds together, practice a bit with, training your playing leverage that starts with the shoulder, of course, and to leave to the fingers just a peripheral action. The fingers are not the engine of the action to press the keys of the thirds. They are just channeling an action that must come from the arm. So a good way is to play a few times, repeating these thirds until you find that you get a steady, fall on the keys, playing the notes together. in practical terms, we are doing this. Let's comment about this work I have done. First of all, what to an external listener might sound like a mechanic repeating is not matching what is happening within myself while I'm doing these things. Basically, the aim is at every repeat of the third, monitoring your feelings in your arm with the sound to increase your level of relaxation. Try not, of course, to lose the simultaneity of these two notes. And this is a very good technical exercise because you are really working to train your fingers to be sufficiently steady and, a dangerous word, stiff, the finger itself. Whereas you have to train your arm muscles to act in the most relaxed possible way. There will be, of course, a contraction in that instant that you hit the keys, and then developing your technique means to release that contraction and to recover a state of relaxation, to lift your arm and drop again with the next third. Another thing, if at the very beginning it sounds like difficult for some of these thirds to be played simultaneously, you can try at first training the fall on a single note, for instance, the higher note. And then after you repeat this 2, 3, 4 times, monitoring your sensations, you start adding the other note. And so on. And the other thing you will notice is that in this step of my work, I'm not worried at all to play anything in legato. Actually, I don't want to play anything in legato because right now I am just to explore the physical setting for each third that gives to me the maximum of the relaxation, control, and stability. Once I feel satisfied with this, as I said, repeating this a couple of times, and this will build up in a few days, 2, 3, 4, depending on your level, that final confidence on the passage that allows you to consider it acquired and working on the refinement. So once I feel stable enough in my control on the third, in individual terms, I try to work in the possible ways with a legato. And a legato word is a very tricky and dangerous word at the piano because often it's not possible to perform it with physical connections between one key and the other and the next. But this is really not the point because for the acoustic properties of the piano sound, in order to establish a legato, we have to be worried about our general fluidity in movements, the volume of a note with respect to the one that is being produced before and has been fading in that slight time frame before the next note. And then the pedal eventually, as a last step, will integrate what we are doing in terms of fluidity and sound continuity with our action. last tip, I might suggest, if you like the idea, to choose the soprano, for instance, as being the leading line in this harmonic progression. This might be a bit of help during performance, not to get lost in the tiny irregularities in the thirds. Gradually, from the non-legato, we work to improve the connections where possible without torturing ourselves with impossible things that, besides being impossible, are also detrimental to the fluidity of the music, because it degenerates a non-fluid choreography in our movements. And practice quite a bit without the pedal. When eventually you will add the pedal at the end as a refinement, things should start feeling even easier and smoother. Okay, we reach now a different texture, in the sense that at least the right hand is playing these chords. And basically the way to work on them is the same that I explained for the thirds. So if initially for some of them in particular, or all of them, whatever it is, you find problematic to play everything together, start with one note and then add the notes progressively. But first train your action to be relaxed in the form. Easier to say than to do, and you will realize that it is an endless work to improve this in your playing. I don't want to bore you repeating the concepts that explained until now on this segment. Just notice that here definitely we need a crescendo. At least you will hear a nice crescendo in the recording. I think is absolutely musically appropriate, so you might work in expressing that. And you remember I was suggesting to play with una corda until this point. The una corda might stay on the first chord, might go away with the second, while the left hand is increasing the intensity of this rhythm. And it requires a bit of work to become solid on this. Is more difficult than what it seems. Well, if you want to add a bit of pepper, as you hear in the recording, why not to add a grace note before the E flat in the bass. And this requires a change in fingering on the rhythmical figure, because probably you were doing it like. So if you were playing the G with the 2, it's time to switch to a 1, so that you prepare the 2 for the E flat and the 3 for the grace note. And here you want to play really energically the second the E flat, right? And so you want it to be with a good fingering, not to screw up the moment. And what to say here? Yes, you have in the score these two chords written as a double accent. Well, I feel the important accent is really on the last chord. And so what happens here? Well, we can play the first chord as a push-up and the second as a fall on the pedal. Yes, when we study, we can study both holding the notes as an exercise and then releasing the notes. In performance, we had better not to stay there for long because we want to go to the next chord that is not really right there. So it's like of a bouncing, but and another small modifiers, if you like that, as you hear in the recording, in the left hand rather than so it would be let's go on. Here we see a for me mysterious tempo indication, beat tempo. What will it mean? I suppose it will mean to play with a needed pronounced rhythm. It's possible because the first two lines might be played, if you like that, with a little bit of freedom. Well, here in the performance we see, I hear however that the tempo is not changing. The same speed that was used for the first two lines is maintained here, that I think is very nice. And so here we have this tricky scale in the left hand, tricky because we have to hold the bass note. And I feel in order to express this beat tempo, pronounced rhythmical regularity, we could study that playing first the main beats only of the scale, that is, of course, review it first slowly to see what fingers you want to have on these notes. Okay, I think this is helpful. And then when you are solid with this, gradually you fill up. Now here in the score we see that these chords are written like. In the recording you hear two staccato chords. I feel it brighter, I like that. Up to you if you want to stick with the score, just find your way to work on it. But again, first you reach a solid control of the chords individually with that same process, that sort of Tai Chi meditating repeated playing of the chords. Tai Chi in the sense that it's really an inner process to monitor your solidity, your relaxation, and trying to get a tiny better control at every repeat. Here again we have, I think, an important accent to play. It is not written, but I think it's necessary for the spirit, on the repeated chord here of, what is it? Is a sort of E flat major with a 7th, a 9, an 11th, whatever. So again, a push up and a drop. I exaggerate the action to make it visible. What I want to say is that pay attention not to do this one, because this, you can feel it, immediately generates tension for the heavy repeated action of your arm, and you want the accent on the second. Very nice for me. And the pedal here. Yes, one general thing. You will hear in the performance, in the recording, that Claude Bolling uses really the pedal here and there. Mostly it sounds like he's not using pedal, or if he's using the pedal, he's using that in a very discreet, punctual way. And here I think, yes, in my opinion, we don't have to use the pedal until these landing chords. It's very helpful even for your choreography to jump to the next chord while the sound is being held by the pedal. But otherwise, it's all clean with no pedal at all. So, no pedal. Pedal here. Okay, and here we keep going with these textures, so the things I said are applicable to all bars, perhaps even here, you know. First, get solid with these, less easy than what they look figures. And you notice the finger replacement. So once you achieve solidity in the falls on the notes, you practice a tempo or going gradually to tempo, removing the secondary beats. Here exactly the same thing. Practice first the scale if you like the idea, if you feel it useful for you, with only the main beats. And here at bar 14. From the recording there are nice modifiers, so I play it as I start with the octaves on the E flat, yes, first on the C flat, and modifiers here. This F make things more juicy, and if you like, you hear a grace note, I think is beautiful, like this. It needs a bit of practice probably. First get solid fall on the E flat and then try to make it quickly along the way. And here we have not easy chords to play in sequence. Always the same process I explained for the thirds, for the other chords. First familiarize with each position gradually, even removing notes initially if necessary. You want to develop a little bit of solidity with the weaker fingers in the chord, the fourth, the fifth, and however some work is necessary. And going see, I keep the same finger. I keep the same fingers on the same keys here, just I add the one on the flat. And you will notice if you hear the recording, these are not played like. There is spirit, there is, character with a nice phrasing like. Something like this, and if you like that, you need to practice a bit with these complicated chords. So this is the process, as I said. First, solidity on each positions, and then gradually working on the transitions. With the left hand that does what it was doing in other segments before. Here apply a modifier instead of. Here we goes as it was before. Good thing the harmony changed at the very last of the line, bar 20. And by the way, perhaps in your work might be of use if you have some basic notion of harmony in the names of chords, in spending 10 minutes to give a name to the chords, especially if you want to memorize. Might help, I feel, to have some reference point here and there, and also to perhaps to go over little memory gaps here and there. So you see that we are basically in A flat major at the beginning. What is it? C, D flat major. Again, A flat major. In a jazzy style, of course, with the addition of 7th, of 11th, of 9th, and so on. And basically, we are doing. This is basically the dominant of E flat major, so of A flat major, sorry. So E flat major with a 7th, a 9th, and 11th, so it would be. That is played as. So you can spend 10 minutes or so to give names to simple chords that remind you the harmonic environment of the bar, might be of help, and the same thing going on. So from E flat major, from A flat major, sorry, with English words of the notes, I am a disaster. Again, from A flat major, we go on the D flat major, G flat major, and even this process of wearing down a bit your brain in understanding what bass harmonies you have underneath helps a bit to familiarize with the texture and to make it look less complicated than what it is. Okay, let's keep going. So we are completing our, how did I call it, a refrain of the ideal rondo structure. Same starting process, so first the fingering, main beats are here. And here the score writes, I suggest a bit of paprika, as you hear in the recording, very nice, with replacing this A flat with a G natural. And then you go with the octaves. And here, starting as simple falls, you have time to fall, rise and fall again. First, to again acquire solidity with a few repetitions, relaxed arm and wrist, and developing solidity in the pencil grasping of the fingers. Doesn't matter, I think, if you can use the 4, the 5th is not the point. You are playing non-legato even in performance, and it's very nice. Perhaps a bit of pedal. You know, I don't use any pedal. You do what you like. Here again, one modifier, very nice for me. Instead of. And in the right hand, the last chord, in the score we have a G minor. And I feel that listening at the recording there is a bit of spice here added. And searching what it might have been, I think that is a F sharp added. So instead of playing, would be the same chord, it is written with an F sharp. I like that. So again, we have this position that might be a bit uncomfortable for who has a smaller hand. As usual, I think you are used to play with a sort of arpeggio rather than the notes together. And again, the method of studying that I have talked about so far, so with relaxed drops a few times on the same chord until you feel you start being comfortable, solid on that position, then you change position, and then you practice changing the position right away. So and gradually increasing the tempo with no hurry. It might take a few days, you know, before you reach that point with a good solidity and sense of relaxation.